She whispered something in a language that didn't exist, and then her body temperature dropped to 89 degrees in under 30 seconds. I'm a doctor. I've seen everything. But what happened that night in room 314 wasn't medicine. It wasn't science. And 15 years later, I still wake up hearing her voice calling my name from somewhere I've never been. But first, let me tell you how it all started, because nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun, and I've been working emergency medicine for over 2 decades. I pronounce time of death on car crash victims, perform CPR on children, held the hands of dying patients as they took their last breath. I thought I was unshakable. I thought I'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. I was wrong. This happened during my residency at Mercy General Hospital in Portland, Oregon. It was October 2009, and I remember because Halloween decorations were still hanging in the hallways, which now feels like some kind of sick joke. I was working the night shift 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and it had been unusually quiet for a Friday night. Too quiet. You know that feeling when the air itself seems to be holding its breath? That should have been my first warning. At 3:17 a.m., and I remember the exact time, because I was staring at the clock, wondering why we hadn't had a single ambulance call the sliding doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in with a Jane Doe mid-30s found unconscious in Powell Butte Nature Preserve. No ID, no purse, no shoes. Just a hospital gown that didn't belong to any local facility. But here's where it gets strange. The gown was pristine. Not a single stain, tear, or wrinkle. Like she just put it on. Yet she'd been found lying in mud and rain for God knows how long. What's her condition? I asked as they wheeled her into room 314. Vitals are weird, Doc, the lead paramedic Tommy Rodriguez said. He'd been doing this for 15 years. Nothing fazed him, but his hands were shaking as he handed me the chart. Heart rate is steady at exactly 60 BPM. Blood pressure 120/80. Temperature 98.6. All perfect. Too perfect. I looked down at her. She was beautiful in an unsettling way, pale skin that seemed to glow under the fluorescent lights, dark hair fanned out perfectly across the pillow lips that looked like she was about to smile. But her eyes were the problem. They were open, completely open, staring straight up at the ceiling. And they never blinked. Not once. Dr. Marcus Webb, former chief of neurology at Mercy General, reviewed this case 3 times before requesting a transfer to another hospital. I found his notes in the archives years later. He wrote patient exhibits symptoms inconsistent with any known neurological condition. EEG shows brain activity that doesn't match human patterns. Recommend immediate psychiatric consultation and discontinuation of direct patient contact for attending staff. Psychiatric consultation. As if what I was experiencing was some kind of breakdown. But I wasn't the only one who felt it. Nurse Patricia Williams, who'd been working ER for 30 years, refused to enter the room after the first hour. She later told me she heard humming coming from inside room 314, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing in Polish. The same grandmother who died when Patricia was 7 years old. The same lullaby no one else should have known. Security guard Kevin Park, a former Marine, who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, was found crying outside the hospital at 5 a.m. When asked why, he could only say she knows things. Things that haven't happened yet. The first strange thing I documented was at 3:45 a.m. Jane Doe's heart rate suddenly spiked to 140 BPM, then crashed to 30, then returned to exactly 60, all in the span of 15 seconds. Her blood pressure never changed. Her temperature never changed. It was like her body was testing us. At 4:12 a.m., she spoke her first words, "Dr. Chin, you're thinking about your sister." I hadn't told anyone my name, and I was thinking about my sister, specifically about the fight we'd had 3 days earlier, a fight no one else knew about. At 4:33 a.m., she turned her head toward me for the first time. Her eyes, which had been staring at the ceiling for over an hour, locked onto mine, and she whispered room 237. Tomorrow night, don't let him use the green syringe. Room 237 was the psychiatric ward. I'd never worked there, had no reason to go there. The green syringe meant nothing to me, but I wrote it down anyway. By 5 a.m., I was alone with her. The other staff found excuses to stay away from room 314. Equipment malfunctions, sudden emergencies in other wings. Even the cleaning crew refused to enter. That's when she started talking continuously. Not to me, through me. Like I was some kind of radio frequency she tuned into. The man with the blue tie will die at 6:17 a.m. Car accident on Burnside Bridge. He's thinking about his daughter right now. About the piano recital he missed last month. Mrs. Patterson in room 301 is going to have a stroke in 18 minutes. Left hemisphere. She'll survive, but she'll never paint again. Dr. Kim is going to find something in his lab. Results tomorrow that will change everything. But he won't believe it. Not until it's too late. I should have walked away. Should have called for backup. Should have done anything except what I actually did. I started taking notes. At 5:47 a.m., every prediction she'd made in the previous hour started coming true. A call came in about a fatal car accident on Burnside Bridge. Male victim mid-40s, blue tie. Time of death 6:17 a.m. Mrs. Patterson's monitor started alarming. Stroke. Left hemisphere. She survived. And Dr. Kim? 3 days later, he discovered something in his blood work that led to a cancer diagnosis. Early stage. Treatable. But he almost ignored the results because they seemed impossible for his age and health status. But Jane Doe wasn't finished. At 6 a.m., exactly 3 hours after she'd arrived, she sat up in bed. No assistance. No gradual movement. Just up, like she was pulled by invisible strings. She looked directly at me and said, "Dr. Chin, tonight you'll understand why you became a doctor. And tomorrow you'll wish you never had." Her temperature started dropping. 98.6, 95.4, 92.1, 89.3. The heart monitor went flatline, but she was still talking. When I checked her pulse, her skin was ice cold. No heartbeat, no breathing, but her eyes were still open, still staring, and her lips were still moving. "Room 237, she whispered. "Green syringe. Don't let him." Then she smiled and disappeared. Not died, not got wheeled away. Disappeared. From a locked room with one entrance. Security cameras showed me entering the room alone at 3:17 a.m. and leaving alone at 6:23 a.m. No other person ever appeared on the footage. But I have 3 hours of notes. Detailed observations of a patient who, according to every record in the hospital, never existed. No admission paperwork. No paramedic report. Tommy Rodriguez, the lead paramedic I talked to, he'd been on vacation in Mexico for the past week. The hospital confirmed it. Room 314? It's been under construction for the past 6 months. Completely gutted. No bed, no monitors, no equipment. Nothing. But here's what still haunts me. That night, the night after Jane Doe disappeared, I got called to room 237 for the first time in my career. Emergency psychiatric consultation. A patient was having a violent reaction to medication. Dr. Phillips was standing over the patient with a syringe in his hand. A green syringe. I knocked it out of his hands without thinking. The medication inside was a dosage error that would have killed the patient instantly. The patient looked up at me from the bed. Same face, same eyes, same voice. "Thank you, Dr. Chin," she whispered. "Now you understand." And then she was gone. Again. That was 15 years ago. I've never talked about it publicly until now. Never filed a report. Never told another soul. But 3 days ago I got a call from Mercy General. They're reopening room 314 after renovations, and they specifically requested me for the first shift. The construction crew found something behind the walls. A leather journal written in a hand I recognize. My handwriting. Documenting patients. I've never seen cases. I've never worked deaths that haven't happened yet. The final entry is dated tomorrow night. Room 314. Patient Dr. Sarah Chun. Time of death 3:17 a.m. Cause unknown. I should probably stay home tomorrow night. Call in sick. Leave town. But I won't, because 15 years ago she told me I'd understand why I became a doctor. And now I think I finally do. Some patients don't need healing. They need witnesses. And some witnesses become patients. If you never hear from me again, remember this: if you ever find yourself in room 314 of any hospital anywhere in the world, and you see a woman in a pristine hospital gown staring at the ceiling, don't take notes. Don't try to help her. And whatever you do, don't let her learn your name. Because once she knows who you are, she'll always know where to find you. But wait, there's something else, something I haven't told you yet. Something that makes this whole story even more terrifying. 3 months after the incident, I started getting letters. Handwritten letters delivered to my apartment with no postmark, no return address. They contained detailed medical records of patients I'd never treated in hospitals I'd never worked at. But the handwriting was mine. Every single letter was written in my own handwriting. The first letter described a patient named Michael Torres, who would be brought into St. Mary's Hospital in Seattle after a motorcycle accident. Severe head trauma, multiple fractures, internal bleeding. The letter included precise details about his injuries, treatment plan, and prognosis. I'd never been to Seattle. I'd never heard the name Michael Torres. 2 weeks later, I saw the story on the news. Motorcycle accident in Seattle. Victim Michael Torres brought to St. Mary's Hospital with injuries matching exactly what was described in the letter. He died 3 days later, just as the letter had predicted. The second letter was about a young mother named Lisa Chong, who had overdosed on prescription medication in Denver. The third was about an elderly man named Robert Wilson, who would have a heart attack during his grandson's birthday party in Phoenix. Every letter detailed events I had no knowledge of, involving people I'd never met in cities I'd never visited. And every single prediction came true. By the 6th month, I was receiving 3 letters a week. Patient names, hospital locations, injury details, treatment outcomes. All in my handwriting. All predicting events that would happen exactly as described. I started keeping a map marking every location, every hospital, every patient. The pattern made no sense. Random cities, random people, random medical emergencies. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Every hospital mentioned in the letters had a room 314. And in every case, the patients were brought to room 314 for their final treatment. The room where they either recovered miraculously or died unexpectedly. I tried to stop reading the letters. I threw them away unopened, but they kept coming. And somehow I always knew what was inside. The patient names would echo in my dreams. Their faces would appear in reflections when I wasn't looking. Their voices would whisper medical details. As I fell asleep, that's when I realized the truth. Jane Doe hadn't disappeared that night 15 years ago. She'd simply moved. From room 314 at Mercy General to every room 314 in every hospital across the country. And she was using me as some kind of conduit, some kind of witness to document what she was doing to other patients, other doctors, other medical staff. The letters stopped coming exactly 1 year after they started. But by then I had received 847 letters describing 847 patients in 847 different hospitals. All accurate, all tragic, all connected to room 314. I thought it was over. I thought I was free. Until 3 days ago, when Mercy General called about the renovations. They found more than just a journal behind the walls of room 314. They found hundreds of letters, all addressed to different doctors in different cities, all written in those doctors' handwriting, all describing patients they'd never treated. The construction foreman told me something else, something that made me realize why I'm telling you this story now. He said the walls of room 314 were covered with names, thousands of names carved into the wood and plaster. Patient names, doctor names, nurse names, security guard names. Everyone who had ever entered that room over the decades. My name was carved there too, but not just once. It appeared 314 times. Once for every day I've been alive since that night 15 years ago. As if someone has been counting, keeping track, waiting. The foreman said there was one more thing. At the very bottom of the wall, almost hidden behind where the bed would have been, there was a message carved deeper than all the names. It said, "Dr. Chin, thank you for being my witness. Now it's time to be my patient. Tomorrow night, when I walk into room 314, I know what I'll find. A pristine hospital bed with clean white sheets. Medical equipment that hums quietly in the darkness. and a patient chart with my name on it detailing injuries I haven't sustained yet, symptoms I haven't developed yet, a death that hasn't happened yet. But here's the thing that terrifies me most. I've been having dreams about other doctors in other cities. Doctors who are about to receive phone calls asking them to work a shift in room 314. Doctors who don't know what they're walking into. Doctors who think they're going to help a patient, but who are actually about to become the patient. If you're a medical professional and you've made it this far into the story, I need you to listen carefully. If you ever receive a call asking you to work in room 314 of any hospital, anywhere, don't go. If you ever encounter a patient with perfect vital signs who never blinks and knows things they should know, walk away. If you ever find handwritten notes in your own handwriting describing cases you've never worked, burn them immediately. And if you ever wake up hearing a voice calling your name from somewhere you've never been, remember that some witnesses are chosen, some patients are selected, and some rooms exist in every hospital for a reason that has nothing to do with healing. Room 314 is waiting. It's always waiting. And now that you know its secret, now that you've heard its story, you're part of it too. Check your mailbox tomorrow. Check the next day. Keep checking until the letter arrives. Because it will arrive. It always does. And when it comes, when you see your name written in your own handwriting, describing your own death in your own room, 314, remember that I try to warn you. Remember that some stories are told not to entertain, but to recruit. Some mysteries are shared not to solve, but to spread. Welcome to room 314. The doctor will see you now. If this story made you question what's real and what's not, hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something in a hospital that you couldn't explain? Have you ever been a patient or visitor and felt like you were being watched by someone who wasn't there? Share this with anyone who loves real medical mysteries and unexplained cases. But maybe don't watch it alone. And if you work in healthcare and you've seen things that don't make sense, that don't fit into medical textbooks, I want to hear your story. Because after 15 years of keeping this secret, I'm starting to think Dr. Sarachin wasn't the only doctor who met Jane Doe. Room 314 is waiting.